Good evening, my dear students. So today in these sessions we are going to learn regarding the types of springs. Springs is broadly classified into four types. The first one we can say as helical spring. Second one we can say as leaf spring, and third one we can say as torsional spring, and fourth one we can say as disc spring. Spring is divided into how many types here? The spring is classified into four types. The first one I told you, helical spring, and second one we can say as leaf spring, and third one is torsional spring, and fourth one is disc spring. The first of all we are going to learn regarding the helical springs. These helical springs also broadly classified into three types. Also broadly classified into how many types here? Three types. The first one we can say as cylindrical spring, the second one we can say as conical spring, and third one we can say as valued spring. So the first cylindrical springs also broadly classified into two types. First one is the compression spring, second one we can say as tension spring. First one is compression spring, another one is tension spring. And the conical spring and valve spring, the mostly both are compression springs. Is it right? Both are compression spring. The first category we are categorized into two types. The first category is known as cylindrical helical spring, and the second category is known as conical and valved spring. Because of the first category, why we are divided? Because of in the cylindrical helical spring, in which tension springs are there and compression springs are there. So that's what we are categorized in the we are first categorized. Is it right? Again, second categorized is known as conical spring because of both are conical springs, and the valved spring the mostly compression springs. Is it right? Then the helical springs are made in such a way that the spring wire is formed around the imaginary cylinder in the form of helical shape. You can observe here helical shape. Then so these helical springs, the cylindrical helical springs, they having two types of springs are manufacturers. The first one is compression springs. These compression springs also called as open coiled spring, and tension springs is also called as closed coil spring. The first one we are going to discuss regarding the closed coil spring. These closed coil springs also called as tension spring. Why we are calling as closed coil spring? Because of the distance between each turn is pretty less, or you can say that the pitch distance is too much small, or we can say that the angle of helix is lesser than 10 degree. So that reason we can say as closed coil spring. So this closed coil spring, this type of the springs is used to resist the elongation, as well as it is mainly used for resist the twisting force. So this closed coil springs, it is widely used in a heavy duty application purpose. We are using the closed coil springs. Okay, then I will give the example, then you can easily understand regarding this figure. Let us observe here, this is the first turn, second turn, third turn of a coil and fourth turn of a coil. Below one, it is looking like a hook, and above one more hook is mounted. One finger is inserted in above hook and another finger we need to insert in a below hook. Okay, and we need to know about what are the internal resistive capacity of this spring. I will give the example. The internally resistive capacity of this spring is 15 Newton. How much is that here? 15 Newton. Is it right? The internal capacity of this spring is 15 Newton. Initially we applied the external load 5 Newton. The external load is lesser than the internally resistive capacity of the spring. For that reason, this spring will not be elongated. Again, if I increase the load, instead of 5 Newton, if I am applying the load of 10 Newton, okay, the external load 10 Newton we are applying on the spring, then there is no elongations will be occurring because of the internally resistive force should be greater than the external force whatever we applied. Again, I am applying the load of 15 Newton. So 15 Newton nothing but the external force. This external force, how much load we applied here? 15 Newton we applying. So this means that from the both this side. Okay, not here. So the external force should be equal to the internally resistive capacity of the springs. If I apply the 15 Newton, there is no elongation because of external force should be equal to the internal resistive force. Is it right? If I am gradually increase the load, instead of 15 Newton, if I applying the load of 20 Newton, is it right? Then there is elongations in the coils or in the spring. This spring will be elongated or length of the springs will be goes on increases. If the external load will be increases, the coil, the number of turns of a coil will be elongated, it will be deflect. Okay, that. So this means that if the external force, if it is greater than the internal resistive capacity of the spring, then only it will be elongated, otherwise it will not be elongated. Okay, dear. So in the closed coil springs, in which again I will repeat, the closed coil spring in which the distance between each turn should be very less. The angle of helix is lesser than 10 degree. So closed coil springs is mainly used for resist the elongation, as well as it is mainly used for resist the twisting force, and this closed coil springs is used in a heavy duty application purpose. We are using the closed coil springs. Again, next one is open coil spring. This open coil springs also called as compression springs. What we can say here, open coil springs is also called as compression spring. Why is the compression springs we are calling? This open coil is indicate that the distance between the two consecutive turn is more. The distance between this is first consecutive and this is the second consecutive. So the helix angle is more than how much? Is more than 10 degree. Is more than 10 degree. So such type of the coil we can say as open coil spring. What we can say here? Open coil spring. These open coil springs are used to resist the compression. So open coil springs are used to resist the compression. These open coil springs we are using in the automobile, we are using in the motorcycle, as well as we are using in the internal combustion engine. We are using the open coil spring. Again, the second category, what we can say, I told you, the second category we can say as conical and valued spring. Is it right? The conical and valued spring is the one type of the compression spring. The shape of the spring is conical in shape. For that reason we can say as conical and valued spring. When if we apply the compressive load on the spring, due to the length of the spring will be compact or length of the spring will be shortened. If I release the load, again it will be occupy the same positions of a conical spring. So these conical and valued springs I am using in electrical and electronic equipment. These conical and valued springs nowadays we are using in electrical and electronic equipment, in which we are using the conical and valued spring. If you observe in our practical life, in our daily life, you can see that the conical and the valued springs are used in a remote, okay, as well as it is a use in a clock's battery section, okay. So this conical and valued springs is also called as tapering spring. What we can say here, this conical and valued springs also called as tapering spring. Let us see this figure. This is a figure of conical spring and this is also a figure of conical springs. So if we apply the compressive load on it, due to what happened here, if you apply the compressive force on it, it will compress the springs. The number of tons of a coil will be decreases, or number of tons of a coil will be compact in nature. If I again remove the load, again it will be occupy the same positions of a conical spring. Is it right? Again, next point, second point is torsional spring. This torsional spring is one kind of closed coil helical spring. Why I am calling as the closed coil helical spring? Because the pitch between the two the pitch between or helix angle should be lesser than 10 degree. So for that reason we are calling as closed coil helical spring. This torsional springs is one kind of closed coil helical spring. In this type of spring, when twisting is occur, the spring store the energy inside it. Let us observe here. If I am taking this torsional spring, when the twisting is occur, then spring will store the maximum amount of energy stored inside in it. When twisting force is lifted up, it will push the actual position, it will occupy the actual position of the spring. If you twisted, if you applying the twisting force, if you applying the twisted, then torque will be generated at the opposite direction. The torque will be generated at the opposite direction wherever the twisting force is applied, which help the spring to back its actual shape. Spring to back its actual shape. So this torsional spring, they have the maximum life of 7 to 9 years. So assuming that 10,000 cycle at 4 cycle per day, is it right? And these torsional springs generally we are using in clips, as well as we are using in a garage door, as well as we are using in to catch the mouse. Is it right? For that reason we are using the torsional springs we are using in our daily life. And fourth one is the most important, is leaf spring. Okay, so leaf spring, it is a arc shape. The shape of this spring, how is it here? The shape is arc shape. The shape is arc shape. Arc shape. So the leaf spring is made of metal strip. This springs is made of metal strip. So one after another are held together by means of nut, by means of U-bolt, or by means of center clip, or we can say by means of clamp. We are fixed to the each strip, we are fixed together. Okay, so leaf springs, it is a widely used in suspension system of a commercial vehicle, such as we are using in bus, truck, lorries. We are using the leaf spring. The main purpose of the leaf spring we are using for this spring, they have the capacity, they having the capable to withstand the maximum force. They can easily withstand the maximum force in a small area. In a small area. For that reason we are giving the more priority to the leaf spring. So this leaf spring is generally made of steel. Sometimes it is made of graphite epoxy or carbon epoxy material. Okay, so multi-leaf spring consists of, so why I am telling about the multi-leaf? Because we have more leaf. Is it right? First leaf, second, third, fourth, fifth. Because that's what we can see as multi-leaf spring. It consists of series of flat plate. So the shape of this spring is semi-elliptical. How is it here? It is looking like a semi-elliptical. The shape of the leaf spring as shown in a figure. This flat plate, what we can say? This flat plate we can say as leaves. What we can say here? We can say as leaves. These leaves are held together. These leaves are fixed or held together by means of U-bolt or by means of center clips. Is it right? And the longest leaf, what we can say, let us see over here. The longest leaf we can say as master leaf. What we can say here? The longest leaf we can say as master leaf. This longest leaf we can say as master leaf. Okay, so on the multi-leaf springs is subjected to the which stress? Bending stress is acting on the multi-leaf spring. So this multi-leaf springs is widely used in the automobile as well as they are using in the railroad suspension, in which we are using the multi-leaf springs. And fifth one, we are going to discuss regarding the disc spring. Okay, so disc springs also called as bevel springs. So the disc spring is a conical shape. How is it? The shape of this spring is conical in shape, which has the characteristics of the spring is it is non-flat. It is a non-flat conical shell spring which is generally load axially. Is it right? Then this type of the spring can exert the constant pressure throughout the object as well as they provide the high load in a small area. Okay, so it is can be used where the thermal expansion as well as thermal contraction happen rapidly. Then we are using the disc spring. Okay dear, so if you have the doubt regarding these sessions, please write down in the comment box and don't forget to subscribe and like my video. Okay, thank you dear.